The Jensen Interceptor is a sporting GT-class car. They were hand-built at the Kelvin Way Factory, West Bromwich near Birmingham in England by Jensen Motors between 1966 and 1976. The Interceptor name had been used previously by Jensen for the Jensen Interceptor made between 1950 and 1957 at the Carrozzeria Touring of Italy. Jensen had extensively used glass-reinforced plastic for the fabrication of body panels in the preceding 2 decades, but the new Interceptor saw a return to a steel body shell and by having the body designed by an outside firm, Carrozzeria Touring of Italy, rather than the in-house staff. The early bodies were Italian-built, by Vignale, before production by Jensen themselves began with subtle body modifications in West Bromwich. Model history and specifications: Jensen used Chrysler V8 engines for the Interceptor, starting with the 6276cc with optional manual or torque-flight automatic transmissions driving the rear wheels through a limited slip differential and a conventional Salisbury rear axle. In 1970 the 383 Ci produced 335 horsepower SA gross, or 270 horsepower SA net. Since this engine was detuned by Chrysler for use with regular gasoline and only produced 250 horsepower SAE net in 1971, Jensen chose to use the 440 Ci Chrysler engine for 1971. For 1971, 2 440 Ci engines were offered. One had a 4-barrel carburetor and it produced 305 horsepower SAE net. The other, which had 3 2-barrel carburetors and produced 330 horsepower SAE net, was only available in 1971. Only 232 cars were built with the 446-pack, and had the distinction of being the most powerful car ever to have been made by Jensen. For 1972, the 440 Ci engine with 3 2-barrel carburetors were no longer produced by Chrysler Corporation. The 440 Ci engine that remained was detuned to 280 horsepower SAE net. Chrysler continued to offer a high-performance 440 Ci engine through to 1976 when it only produced 255 horsepower SAE net. The Interceptor may have taken some styling cues from the bracing car wrapper-up, with a distinctive large, curving wraparound rear window that doubled as a tailgate. The original specification included electric windows, reclining front seats, a wood-rimmed steering wheel, radio with twin speakers, reversing lights and an electric clock. Power steering was included as standard from September 1968. The Mark II was announced in October 1969, with slightly revised styling around the headlamps, front grille and front bumper. It also introduced ventilated disc brakes in lieu of the earlier unventilated discs and a completely restyled fascia/dashboard. The Mark III of 1971 revised the front grille, headlamp finishes and bumper treatment again. It also had revised seats, optional fully cast alloy wheels. Other minor improvements. The 6.3-litre 383 Ci engine was also superseded by the 7.2-litre 440 Ci in 1971. The Mark III was divided to G, H, J series depending on the production year. By 1975 the company fell on hard times due to the then worldwide recession, and the receiving company allowed production to be wrapped up using the available cache of parts. Production of the Interceptor ended in 1976. A group of investors stepped in and relaunched production of the Interceptor, which was briefly reintroduced in the late 1980s as the Series 4. The car came back as a low-volume hand-built and bespoke affair, marketed in a similar way to Bristol, with a price to match. Though the body remained essentially the same as the last of the main production run of Series 3. The engine was a much smaller Chrysler-supplied 360 cubic inch which used more modern controls to reduce emissions comparatively and still produce about 230 horsepower. In addition, the interior was slightly redesigned with the addition of modern sports front seats as opposed to the armchair style of the earlier models, as well as a revised and modern dashboard and electronics. The then owner sold up in 1990 to an engineering company believed to be in a stronger position to manufacture the car, which lasted until 1993 with approximately 36 cars built, and while work commenced on development of a Series 5 Interceptor, once again receivers were called in and the company was liquidated. Variants: a convertible with powered soft top was introduced in 1974, mainly intended for the American market but also sold in Europe. 267 convertibles were made. Rarer still is the Cooper copyright version with just 60 made, derived from the convertible and therefore without the distinctive rear window of the regular car that was introduced in 1975, a year before the company's demise. Jensen FF. Jensen were one of the first manufacturers to equip a production car with four-wheel drive, in the 1967 Jensen FF. At the time it was hailed as a remarkable development, coming also with Dunlop Maxarette mechanical anti-lock brakes and traction control. The car is 5 inches longer than the Interceptor, and although looking virtually the same, the extra length is identified by an additional side vent ahead of the doors on the front flanks, an extension to an additional swage line in the leading edge of the front wing. Press articles from the time quote drag strip performance when describing the car. In total 320 FFs were produced. 195 Mark I, 110 Mark II and 15 Mark III. The Jensen Interceptor are, a Jensen specialist based at Carrozzeria Bridge rebuilds original Interceptors using modern components, with a General Motors supplied 5.7-liter engine and transmission. In May 2010, Jensen International Automotive was set up, with the financial backing and know-how of Carphone Warehouse founder and chairman Charles Dunstone, who joined its board of directors. A small number of Jensen Interceptor SS, which had started production under a previous company, are being completed by Jensen International Automotive, in parallel with JIA's own production of the new Jensen Interceptor R. Deliveries of the latter have started at the Oxfordshire-based manufacturer and restorer. References: Keith Anderson. Jensen. Haynes Publishing Group. ISBN A0-85429-682-4. Keith Anderson. Jensen and Jensen Healey. Sutton Publishing. ISBN A0-7509-1808. John Tippler. Jensen Interceptor, The Complete Story. The Crowwood Press. ISBN 1-86126-711-8.